Assalamu alaikum. Let's cook. Okay, people, today we're going to discuss a great man named Curt Flood. Curt Flood is one of the most important, influential people in all sports history. And every athlete who has negotiated a contract in any sport owes respect to this black man, Curt Flood. All athletes benefited off of this man's hardships, his beliefs, his resilience, but black athletes should definitely know who this man is. This is our people right here. Now we know that a lot of times white people are not going to give us credit for anything, although every white athlete who has negotiated a contract has benefited off of Curt Flood's hardship and resilience. But every black athlete should know about this man because this is our people, as opposed to letting them shove people in our face who they tell us we should honor. And you know who I might be talking about. I made a video about one of these people in the past, but Curt Flood, people. Curt Flood is the reason why athletes can exercise a contract. He's the reason for free agency. He's the reason why athletes can negotiate their worth. He's the reason why there are no more slave contracts in athletics. Now let's talk about his upbringing and where he's from. Curtis Charles Flood. He was born in Houston, Texas, January 18th, 1938. He was the youngest of 6 children. His parents are Herman and Laura Flood, and they moved to Oakland, California when Curt was a toddler. When his parents moved to Oakland, they moved to a predominantly mostly white middle-class neighborhood in East Oakland. And after that, they moved to a less affluent neighborhood in West Oakland in order to get away from the growing hostility of local whites after World War II, racial battle fatigue. You know, after World War II, the white soldiers were over there fighting the war. They said, okay, now let's go home and fight a war against the N-words. That's pretty much American history. Now, Curt Flood's parents were good, hardworking black people. And it was obvious very early in life that Curt was a gifted baseball player and artist. When I say artist, I mean with the pen and the paint, you know, gifted. Now, Curt Flood, he had a white coach named George Powles who took a special liking to him. And Curt Flood's interactions with this coach Powles began to change how he viewed the relationship between white and black people. Curt Flood once said, "If I now see whites as human beings of variable worth rather than as stereotypes, it is because of a process that began with George Powles." Okay? So this man, George Powles, this coach, was a well-mannered white person. He presented himself as a human. And at this time in Curt's life, he viewed white people as just knuckle-dragging beasts, mean, arrogant, heartless, nasty, due to his experiences. So he didn't even see white people as human, Curt Flood. But when he met George Powles, a white man who had manners and respect, he said, okay, well, I didn't know they had people like you all. So Curt Flood, he went on to excel in baseball, junior high school. And when he was in high school, his skills caught the eyes of many major league scouts. He graduated from high school in the year 1956. He was drafted by the Cincinnati Reds. He signed a contract with the Cincinnati Reds. He went to the minor leagues to play with the Redlegs. $4,000 they gave him. They gave him that and an invitation to spring training camp in Tampa, Florida. Now at this time, Curt Flood had to travel to Tampa, Florida for spring training. He was raised in California. And as racist as California was, it was low-level racism compared to what was going on in Florida. You know, so the realities of American racism hit Curt Flood again in Florida when he was, ushered out of the side door of the Redlegs training camp hotel, hustled across to another boarding house where black players can stay. He's like, wow, what's this? Oh, black people got to stay there. So in the South, a lot of boarding houses were named after the woman who ran these houses, cooked for them. So the one that he often went to was called Ma Felder's boarding house, or Miss Bessie's boarding house. These are the places where black players could stay. So this racism struck a nerve with Curt, and he would never forget it, even as a Major League Baseball player. Now, when Curt Flood went up to the major leagues, he played 15 years in the major leagues from 1956 to 1971. He batted .293. He was a 3-time All-Star, played center field for the St. Louis Cardinals, won Golden Gloves 7 consecutive seasons. He was on 3 pennant winning teams with the Cardinals, and he has 2 World Series rings. Curt Flood was a great baseball player, okay? And that's a heck of a career. For anybody who knows about baseball, he batted career .293, won 2 World Series. He will always be remembered as a great baseball player, okay? And it's what, Curt Flood didn't do in the year of 1969 that changed baseball forever, changed all sports forever. And in the year of 1969, what happened with Curt Flood is he did not accept a trade. In 1969, he refused to honor a trade from the St. Louis Cardinals to the Philadelphia Phillies. He told them that he was not a piece of property. He can't be moved at the whims of management. Curt Flood called his relationship with his baseball team a master and slave relationship. Curt Flood was a conscious black man. He said that there was no way that he was going to play for a team that was known for its racism and its hostility towards black players and people. So the history of Philadelphia, people, Philadelphia, very nasty racist place. That's where they were trying to send him. Curt Flood said no. You know what I mean? And as a black man who played in these very racist towns in the South, Curt Flood was very sensitive to racism, human rights. He was a black man who had full access to his humanity. And at the time, the team that he played with, the St. Louis Cardinals, was one of the greatest organizations in the world, okay? So that's who he was playing for. He was also the longest standing member on that team, 3-time All-Star, fan favorite. So Curt Flood said, nah, you're not sending me to Philly. The problem was that Curt Flood played at a time in 1969 where players were still bound to a team for life by the so-called reverse clause, okay? So this basically meant a player was a team's property. The only way that you could leave the team that you play on is if the team traded you or released you, or you play for them for the rest of your life. We either trade you or we release you, or you play for us for the rest of your life, okay? So that was the only way you were getting away from a team. You know what I mean? Or you could say, I'm retiring. That's straight up slavery, not comparing a sport to chattel slavery at all, okay? Not comparing it to that. But Curt Flood refused to honor this trade, and he became public enemy number 1. The white folks cursed him. How dare you? You N-word, you make $90,000 a year, you claiming to be a slave. The typical language they still do right now. You know what I'm saying? You should be happy you're making this money talk. When a black person feels as though they're worth more. To this day, he got death threats. They called him all kinds of names. The N-word, how dare you bite the hand that feeds you. Curt Flood refused to honor this trade. He wrote a letter to Major League Baseball and told them that this trade was against his human rights as an American, and that he would wish for all teams to know that he was available if they would like his services. That's the letter he wrote. Major League Baseball refused to listen. And to make a long story short, Curt Flood was out for the entire season. Okay? So what Curt Flood did is he said, okay, I'm going to take Major League Baseball to court. He said, I'm not a piece of property. I will sue you. Okay? So somebody by the name of Marvin Miller and the Players Association, they took up Curt Flood's case. They took his case up. And of course, the lawyers for Major League Baseball argued that the reverse clause is essential to the future of organized baseball. Of course it is, because it works in their favor. You stay with us forever until we get rid of you. They said that without the reverse clause, all the rich teams will get all the all-star players. Curt Flood argued that the reserve clause is a violation of the 13th Amendment. This is the 13th Amendment against slavery and indentured servitude. So in the year of 1970, Curt Flood had his first trial, federal district court in Manhattan. He wants to challenge them. He took it all the way up to the Supreme Court. The battle with Major League Baseball took 3 years. When he took the stand, he was treated horribly by the federal judges. This judge and many others, they were just upset that a black man had dared challenge Major League Baseball. This judge with his white crack of sarcasm said to Curt Flood, this is not as easy as playing center field, is it? Kind of like a shut up and dribble type thing. You know what I mean? But there was no active member in baseball that testified on Curt Flood's behalf. Retired players. I gotta say this though. I gotta say this, people. I don't give this man credit, but Jackie Robinson did come to Curt Flood's defense when he was retired. Okay, I have to say that Jackie Robinson did. He came to Curt Flood's defense when he was retired, but no active players came. Okay, nobody came to support him, and just think, they're all going to benefit off of him. They're all going to ride his wave of strength if he's successful, but none of them came. So Curt Flood, he lost in district court. He lost again at the Court of Appeals. The United States Supreme Court ruled against him by a vote of 5-3, and baseball was still exempt from antitrust laws. Amazing, right? This reserve clause still stood. You know, and Curt Flood believes that he lost because his colleagues did not stand with him. He said, had they shown any amount of solidarity, we would have won. We would have won. So people check, we have one man here, Curt Flood, fighting for the rights of all the baseball players in Major League Baseball, but none of them came to stand with him. Amazing. But people, we know how that is, you know. He lost in a very narrow vote, though. Okay, he made his statement. He made his statement, and his statement would make a lasting impact forever, you know. He never reaped the tangible benefits of his work, because after that, he only played 13 more games in Major League Baseball. 13 more games after that, okay? He joined the Washington Senators in 1971, but by then he wasn't the same player anymore. You know, he lost the case, but athletes then, after Curt Flood did that, they got an understanding of what was going on and why Curt Flood was doing it. So pretty much, because of Curt Flood, every athlete in every professional sport became so-called woke, okay? His case led the groundwork for athletes to settle at the negotiating table. So now when you hear the word negotiations in any sport, that's because of this great black man here, Curt Flood. Basketball, hockey, football, baseball, Curt Flood put the battery pack in every athlete. Major League Baseball also adopted something called the 10-5 rule, or the Curt Flood rule. So what this meant was players who had accrued 10 years of Major League Baseball service time and spent the past 5 years with the same team, they are awarded something called 10-5 rights. Under this circumstance, they can veto any trade scenario, okay? So they can say, no, I'm not going there. They named that the Curt Flood rule. So he did do his thing, you know what I'm saying? When you hear athletes say free agency, I'm a free agent, this is because of the impact and the work of this one black man, Curt Flood, a black man who had full access to his humanity. Every athlete in the world should pay homage to this man. I mean, for people who get tattoos that are athletes, they should have a tattoo of Curt Flood on them. Players from other countries, America, whatever, they come to America and make millions in the sport. That's because of Curt Flood. A black man did that for him, okay? And me personally, I think a small portion of every negotiation should have a Curt Flood tax in it to go to his offspring. People, to this day, Curt Flood is not in the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame. Not only was he an exceptional baseball player, batted over .290 with 2 World Series rings, he did something even bigger. Now, this is what happened with Curt Flood. Curt Flood ended up emotionally and financially broken. He moved to Spain at one point. In Spain, he had a small business. He also dealt with issues with alcohol and smoking. And finally, the alcohol and smoking caught up with him. He passed away in the year 1977 at 59. Condolences to the family of Curt Flood. Easy.